Call the regular council meeting to order, and we have an amendment to the agenda to add Fire Department of North Huron report under department reports. Do I have a motion? Campbell and McGowan. All in favor? Carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest, if any. None noted. I will make the Reeves report fairly short tonight, throwing an advertisement out for Wednesday, October 1st, between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. There will be a job fair, an opportunity for students, job seekers, and educators to attend a job fair, career fair, business trade show at the Wingham Knights of Columbus Hall, and that the one held in Blue Water last year was very successful with a lot of people attending, and I think it's an excellent way to step forward and throw the welcome mat out for both employers and employees. So from that, I will move to reading of the minutes of the previous meeting, or the previous meetings. There's a planning advisory meeting from September 2nd, a second planning advisory meeting from September 2nd, and the council meeting September 2nd. So, Campbell and Vauden, all in favor? Carried. Okay, we have a deputation tonight with Andy McBride and Lenny Alexander. Read the House and Dam. Andy and Lenny.
Thank you, Reed Vincent, council members, staff, ladies and gentlemen. We're here this evening to speak to you about the state of our dam. That's the house and dam at the north end of Wingham. As Reed Vincent mentioned, my name is Andy McBride. My committee members who are joining me this evening are Rennie Alexander. On my right, Rennie's a 40-year resident of the town of Wingham. He's a former park and recreation manager for the town of Wingham. He's an avid outdoorsman, a fisherman, a hunter, and he has property abutting the pond. Our other committee member is Jim Wickens over here. Jim? Jim's lived in Wingham for 30 years. He's an original member of the Musical Muskrat Festival Committee and is still active on that committee. And I'm a 45-year resident of the town of Wingham, former manager of the Maitland and Saugeen Valley Conservation Authorities, retired consulting engineer of 35 years. 2.5 years ago, a citizens committee was formed by Terry Taylor. Terry, you want to give us a wave? And he formed that committee to investigate the possibility of repairing the dam. Unfortunately, that committee got a little disillusioned by the red tape involved, but this past year, Rennie Alexander took up the torch. We've been meeting with your Public Works Manager and your Parks and Recreation Manager since March. And we're here tonight with the support of a number of people. If you don't mind standing up, those of you that are supporting the dam repair proposal. These are some of the over 500 people that we have supporting us. Thank you. Plus we have the Wingham BIA, Lions Club of Wingham, Wingham Horticultural Society, Wingham Sportsman's Club, and the Musical Muskrat Festival Committee. You have letters of support in your package there from all of those groups except the Muskrat Festival Committee. It's not meeting actively at the moment, but Mr. Wickens is going to get a letter soon. So we're asking you to consider starting a repair project of the dam. And I stress it's the dam, not the bridge, only the dam. by advancing to your managers, Mr. Church and Mrs. Newsom, $15,000 from your reserve account, which you have set aside for the dam, to hire an engineer to prepare some plans and specifications so that we can proceed to apply for the permits that we would need. And at the same time, we'll be investigating further the power generation proposal that Mr. Nicholson has suggested in the past. So we have a few slides here I'd like to go through, if that's okay. Neil, you have copies of them there. As I mentioned, the objective of our committee is to encourage you to restore the dam so that the water level in the pond will reach its previous operating level. That's about 5 feet higher than it has been for the last number of years, and to improve the appearance of the dam from all directions. This dam, we're not just sure of the date. This photo came from the museum, but the original dam was built before, I stress before, 1862. That's over 152 years ago. So obviously the dam is of historical importance to this town. Okay, ready? This is the old portion of the dam that we're speaking of. It was built in 1921. So you can see there, old car and old clothing, probably old people. So it's 93 years old. It was repaired in 1948 when there was a major flood after the 47-48 winter. The earthen part washed out on the west side, and additional spillways were built there in the late 60s. The dam is owned by the township, township, and the land around it is also owned. I stress this is not a flood control structure. It was originally built to create power for grist mill, flour mill, and it does not have enough capacity to make any difference in a flood situation. So, as you probably know, the operation of it is to remove the logs in the fall and replace them in the spring after the spring runoff. And if and when there was a flash flood during the summer months, the logs would have to be removed from all or part of it. So this is the old portion of the dam, looking from the upstream side with the water at its lowest level. We have some close-up pictures. These are the two west bays, so there's 4 bays. This abutment and this abutment are in poor condition. The sills, the part that the logs sit on, are in poor condition for the most part. As you can see, this westerly one is fairly good condition, but the next one is eroded badly. Bearing in mind how old this concrete is, it's not surprising. So your public works staff has not been able to install the logs for, well, we think since 2006, because the water would just go underneath them through these gaps in the sills. Ready? This is the bit of earthen embankment between the old portion of the dam and the late 60s emergency high flow spillways over on the west side. This is a close-up of those spillways. They can take the water right down to this level, past considerable flow. This is where the normal operating level used to be, up in this area, and your staff's only been able to raise the water level to approximately there recently, which does not allow proper use of the pond, and it's not as attractive because the pond is not extensive as it has been in the past. This is a picturesque shot taken this spring from the upstream side, obviously out in the water, of the old section of the dam with the walking bridge downstream. This is the downstream side of the dam from the east side. As you can see, there's spalling of the concrete, which needs to be repaired to make it look more attractive. I do point out, though, that the downstream side here of the spillway has sheet piling reinforcement driven in across its width. It's a more close-up shot there of the east spillway. What I'd like to point out to you here are a couple of things. About 15 years ago, according to my records and discussion with your staff, is the last time any money was spent on this by the municipality. And that was when your Public Works Department did some repairs to this abutment and this abutment. You can see that they're in fairly good condition as compared to the others. This is the low-flow spillway of the original structure. It's had the logs in it continuously for the last number of years because, of course, the large structure to the west is what actually controls the low-flow level. There's a close-up shot of that coming. So this is one of the spillways here. As you can see, the sill is in poor condition. This particular one hasn't eroded badly. What I'd like to point out to you here is these steel brackets on the top part here is where vertical I-beams are installed. They're installed into depressions in the sill. And then your Public Works staff lowers 3 sections of logs into each bay. And those steel uprights and the log sections are sitting in the former PUC yard waiting to be used again. Okay. This is the abutment that's in very poor condition. As you can see, it wasn't repaired 15 years ago by Bob Thompson and the work staff. You can see the face of the sills here needs protection and restoration. Okay. This is one of the abutments that was repaired. A closer look at the sills. Here's a steel channel where the logs would slide into. Yep. Close-up shot of that. This is a spillway on the downstream side. It looks worse than it is because of the growth on the concrete, but there is some repair that needs to be done at the base of that abutment. Now this is behind that low-flow structure I pointed out that still has the logs in it. Obviously there needs to be some repair down there. And this is on the other side of that. I believe that would be the west side, which requires some repair as well. That's the same location, just a little bit at the toe. That's a close-up of that control structure. This obviously is new concrete. I can't tell you exactly when that was put in, but that old sill there needs to be restored or replaced. We're not talking about replacing. We're talking about possibly constructing a wall. Let's call it a knee wall across the front of these sills, or just capping them and bringing that concrete down all the way. We have inquired from our two local engineering firms for an engineering fee to undertake this work, and it's in the order of $10,000. They're within a few $100s of each other. So we're asking for $15,000 to be released so that in case there's something else that comes up when they're doing their investigation, we would have enough money to cover that. This is the very poor spillway looking from the side. The steel channel on that particular bay, and this is the bay that's eroded the worst, starting right there. As you can see, that one for some reason or other is still in reasonable condition on the top, possibly because the water tended to run over to the east side. It's another shot of the channel. And here's one of the ugly approaches to the walking trail or walking portion across the old bridge now. These are signs that had to be put up when it was a road. It hasn't been a road now for quite a number of years. So we think that there could be some obvious improvements to the approach, both on the east side and the west side, and then of course the upstream and downstream face of the structure. Yeah. Just a reminder that if the pond wasn't there, this is what things would look like. This particular area, personally, we think that a nice pond of water there looks better than And this is a Photoshop drawing with the repairs done. Unfortunately, we didn't know how to raise the water level when we Photoshopped it, but you can see the abutments are repaired, the face of the bridge has been repaired. This is a shot of your park where the Libro picnic pavilion is, where the boat launch is. It's just off to the right here, a concrete slab, break wall here, or docking area. You can see the tires there. If the water level was where it used to be, it would be right up to the bottom of those tires. It would cover up this shrubby growth area there. It would be up on the side of those concrete slabs there. Yeah. And that's on the east side. On the west side, all of this scruffy stuff along the edge would be underwater. This is a close-up, photoshopped close-up of the structure with the repairs done. Except, though, again, the water level hasn't been raised because we didn't know how to do that. So we ask for your consideration of this request. I understand it's formally in one of your manager's reports. We can try to answer any questions if you have them. As I say, we have over 500 people that have, from the community, that have indicated that they're interested in this repair, as well as those community groups.
Archie?
Make a motion to release the $15,000 in order for the committee to take the next step in their project.
You're seconding, Bill? Got that, Kathy? Discussion? Bernie?
Andy, I'm just wondering, in '85 there was a study done on this, and I'm sure the town spent a lot of money. I've talked to Don on this, and it was a $2 million project back then. That study that was done, an engineer study that was done then, are you going to start from that or look at that, or is that another one of those ones we spent money on and it's just wasted? Like, it's obviously not better than then, but I'm saying if that study shows it's here, then we be using something like that?
We'll be providing it to the engineers that are hired.
Okay.
I just got a copy of it the other day, actually. I haven't had a chance to read it, but I believe it was considerably more extensive than what we're proposing. There's also a 1997 report, which is more in line with what we're talking about. I'm not sure if it was an error or not, but we'll check this because it was prepared by one of the engineers we're dealing with. But the concrete work that they propose there were wing walls and piers and all that kind of thing, and it was considerably less than the 80 report.
Archie?
The question, the 97 report, if I recall correctly, gave two options. One was replacement with a weir structure, Andy, and then replacement with a weir or as well as a road. The road was obviously totally unattainable because I think the costs were just out of this world. The committee's probably talked about options of repairs compared to, replacement with a weir. And I can't remember the exact numbers that the weir came in. It wasn't cheap either, but where does the committee, what are their thoughts on, initial cost, what they think a repair would be compared to the replacement with a weir type structure?
Well, this quote for the weir involved removal of the bridge, removal of the, it says the spillway bridge and then the main bridge. I'm not just sure what the difference is. And then a complete new weir constructed, it was $500,000 for the weir. In total, it was almost $1 million.
Yeah.
We're thinking of a repair, just restore those sills so that the logs can go in. We have a lot of faith in the old structure since it's been there since the 20s. And then fixing by parging, fixing the surface.
Just to find, I don't remember if I mentioned this to you or maybe it was to Renee or somebody else, that the MTO engineers did come up and do an inspection. And they felt like cosmetically, of course, it doesn't look good at all, and the stop logs in particular need the most work. But that structurally, it's actually fairly sound. They felt there's a substantial amount of steel in it, and there didn't seem to be any degradation underneath the spillways. Like the water wasn't getting underneath, which would cause it quite a bit more problems. So hopefully, I mean, I think this is a great option that the committee's been looking at for the last couple of years, and I commend all of you. I think it's going to be wonderful to go ahead and get this project started and get some engineering done and get the cosmetics fixed.
Well, we hope it's affordable. My figure is like about 25,000 per bay. So I'm hoping it'd be under 150,000 to do the work. We'll see. Maybe way out in left field.
Has the committee done any thinking about how this should be financed? You know, when we know what the price is.
Right. Well, it's our understanding that there's a considerable reserve sitting, and we're hoping that, we're fairly confident that it could be done.
It would be
for less
within
than-
that amount?
Yes.
That would be wonderful. That'd be great.
At this time, as I say, we haven't had any engineering done.
Are we going to Pat?
I just wanted to comment, this committee has been extremely
Active.
committed to this project and very organized in their thoughts. So getting the engineering report is going to really help council make the next decision, what to do. It's also going to help us explore grant opportunities as well as what other permissions are required and how to apply for those permissions. So this is the next step. It's not council's final decision on what to do next, but it is releasing the funds to go forward. Having the $214,000 in reserve would be, also could be leveraged as matching dollars in grant applications. So we won't know the answers until we hear back from the engineers, but I think that they're well on their way to the right step, and both Kelly and I support the work that they're doing, and until we have that report back, council will have better information to make the next step decision.
James?
We had an open house down at the Hot Stove Lounge. It was the students from the University of Guelph. They made a whole bunch of diagrams. Is there any way that we could form a committee that the two groups, I hate to say the no's and the yeses, could work together to come up with an overall plan of how they would like to see all this work together? I know this was done in Listowel, with their dam, but they had a guy from the Ministry of Natural Resources come up and sat down with them, and they went through and did all this together as a group. And I just, is there any way that this would work? That we could work together, something like this?
To put in some of that landscape
Put the two groups
improvements?
together, yeah. Like form a committee with
Who's
some
the,
of your
who's the
group.
other group?
Well, I think there's other people that would like to belong to this other group that have seen, that were down at that open house at Hot Stove
Mhm.
Lounge too.
Sure.
Like, I just think that we're
To
improving
improve the park area?
the whole thing,
Sure.
yes. And it's farther up the river that they're looking at going too.
Yeah, the Horticultural Society is quite interested in that. They told me in trying to extend the walking trail up to the east, so I could see where that could all work in together.
Pat?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I did, obviously, was one of the hosts of that presentation, and the Guelph student conceptual designs are excellent, and as the professor pointed out that night, that we can take a look at those, what do we like best from those, and then have a landscape architect actually design our master plan for our waterfront, whether the dam is in or out. But the first decision has to be made in or out, so that we know the water levels to make that park's decision. And then have, you know, a 20-year long-term plan to improve the park, the use of the water, or the use of the area, the trails, and all of that, which is along our waterway and in our park. So just to answer your question, Jim, I think it's a process which we all need to work towards. This is sort of the first step.
And I think based on the community response, with 500 names in this book and those community groups, I think the community basically has indicated that they would prefer to see the pond.
Did you have a question, Bill?
I just wanted to be clear that the capital reserve fund that's there, that 214,000, that was specifically set up for this dam,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
So it's money that's there, it's to be spent on the dam, so it's time to spend.
Right.
Just a slight comment. I think it's great when a committee does a great deal of work, looks into the possibilities and studies it, and doesn't just come asking for money for something. I think you're to be commended for doing this. Thank you.
Just one other question.
James?
The Ministry of Natural Resources they have a man on board that looks at looking after the dams. Have you been in contact with him?
We have.
Okay.
We've been in touch with all of the approval agencies as far as we know.
Because I understand Ken is quite willing to come up and sit down and talk and help us go through some.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Well, if there's no further questions of council, thank you very much for those, well, for the presentation and those that were here to support. Okay.
Yeah, there's a motion on the floor.
We haven't taken it.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Okay, moving into department reports. In health and safety, I think it's very good that Kelly has been busy. And he's received the certification for Part 1 basic and Part 2 workplace specific hazard training. So that's all part and parcel. We hope to have our employees trained properly to handle the situations. Congratulations, Kelly. Okay. Moving to recreational facilities, how much are you going to add?
To time or to the agenda?
Well, number one is personnel.
Oh, no, I think everything is in my report. The motion is the recommendation, so I think Kelly and I are satisfied. We can proceed with the next step, and we have enough council direction on that.
Okay, the airport
Just
zone.
one comment on that. I think that council should have been let know a little while ago, like probably 4 months ago, 5 months ago, that this was happening and our staff was busy working on this. I think staff need to know, council needs to know the staff, what the staff was doing, where their time is being spent. It was an eye-opener to read this report and to see this, our staff working on this for 5 months without us. Just a comment.
Your worship, I don't know how Councillor Campbell's not aware of it. I mean, I've been aware of it for over 2 years. The committee's been working on it in and out with trying different avenues. So it's not a surprise to me at all. I've had several phone calls from Mr. Alexander and Mr. McBride, and there's been a lot of meetings. So and I was well aware that before Kelly, even I know Scott Price was involved. I know Don's been involved one time. We met with the Minister Canfield about having that as an energy source, and it wasn't really a surprise.
4 years I've been sitting on council, except for talking to Kelly and council about the energy source. It was news to me tonight too. It's the first I read about it. Well, I shouldn't say tonight. I did know when I did sign the petition. I am all for fixing it, but no, I have to agree with Mr. Campbell that it would be nice, and it's a tough thing to say how much information is too much information, how much is not enough, but no, it would be, as we spoke about, it would have been better to have a little bit more knowledge as we went along.
But I respectfully disagree. I've heard both department heads talk about it, and I believe at council meetings, so I'm perplexed by that, but it's irrelevant.
I guess I just would like to explain that our CAO clerk was well aware of the work that we've been doing on this project and meeting with this group. I think that in his opinion, in speaking with us, there were other projects that were on priority lists for council to deal with, and so it wasn't on the agenda prior to this. So we were keeping him in the loop of what we had been working on, and he was aware and gave us permission to pursue this project, just in our defense.
Okay.
Okay.
Moving to point 2, the airport zoning.
Yeah, if I can just indulge council on some other good news before I jump into that. I'm just pulling it up here. So I think it was 2 council meetings ago, I was questioned about an expense, which we sent one of our staff to the Can Fit Pro conference. And the good news is that she attended a session and put her name into a draw. And so we're excited to announce that we have a new piece of equipment at the fitness center as a success. It's a $3,500 machine plus the accessories, and it's called a Hyper Vibe. And it's a new kind of training, vibration training, and it's for pain management, obesity, arthritis, fibromyalgia, osteoporosis, back pain, poor circulation, lymph drainage, varicose veins. So it's kind of a new piece of equipment, and we were successful in the draw and just excited to have it. It was delivered last week, so we're training our members and encourage anybody to come up and take a look at it. It's kind of different and kind of fun.
Good job.
Yeah.
Please pass on our thanks to whoever the staff member
Yeah, that was Melissa Scott.
Well, you pass along thanks.
All right. So my first report is on the airport zoning. So if it's with council's permission, I would like to amend my recommendation. I will talk about the topic, but initially my recommendation was to adopt the agreement as bylaw tonight between the Township of North Huron and Municipality of Morris Turnberry. The final wording of the agreement I had hoped to have for tonight. I had inserted a draft agreement. However, we're just tweaking some of the smaller issues, and we're trying to match the timing of Morris Turnberry zoning bylaw. So what I would request tonight from council is a motion to accept the agreement in principle, in concept, and then I would like to bring it back in its final form on October 6th to adopt as bylaw. But I'm more than happy to sort of just explain what's happening. So what we're trying to achieve here is to zone the property inside the airport. So we're talking about the airport, which is located in Morris Turnberry. And the other thing we're trying to accomplish is to protect the airspace around the airport. That's a 4-kilometer radius around the runway. And that is to protect any thing that could impact the airspace that is required to operate the airport as it is today and with future growth of the airport. And the only way that we can do this is to adopt it into the zoning bylaw in Morris Turnberry, and they're receptive to this as well. It's just been working through how to do this. It's a complicated issue between federal jurisdiction, municipal planning jurisdiction, and the provincial policy on planning. So we've been able to come to terms on this agreement, which we're very happy about. There's a few things, and if you'd read the agreement on Schedule A, for example, we suggested, our request was to have permission for an eating establishment. They just want to, for example, say, okay, it has to be in the terminal and can only be this big. We're not going to build a Kelsey's out of the airport. We just want to put a snack bar in. So we're just trying to work through some of these terms back and forth. And so it is going to their council, Morris Turnberry, tomorrow night as part of the zoning bylaw with their planner giving the report. Then we'll hear back and be able to finalize the agreement and bring that Monday, October 6th, before their final meeting on October 7th when they plan to adopt their zoning bylaw.
I'd make a motion to give approval in principle.
Do we have a seconder? Vauden seconds. Discussion? Go ahead, Bruce.
I'm just not sure what we're agreeing to here since we haven't seen the Morris Turnberry bylaw. I do have a few questions on it. Hearing that it's a 4-mile radius around the airport just makes me a little nervous. I don't see anywhere in here where it even tells us that a farmer can still farm the land or what's going on with it. You're taking in a lot of territory. So we have no map, no information. We don't know Morris Turnberry's bylaw. Not sure what it's going to say. We don't know what Morris Turnberry is going to restrict this to. I just think we need to hold on to this till we get a little more proper information exactly what Morris Turnberry is going to do. Pat, I just would like to see something in writing before we agree to continue on with this.
Okay. I guess I didn't include enough information because if you remember, we had Philip Van Manen here about a year ago presenting he recommended is the airspace protection zone around the airport. And I'm happy, this is the draft one from July, which is, they're all in favor of including this in the zoning bylaw, which is the airspace protection. It is not a zone, it is a restriction. So we don't, so we don't say that is now industrial, that is, if it's zoned industrial, agricultural, residential, it remains that. It just says on those properties, you can't build above this certain height. Currently, there is nothing that impedes this height that we currently have in this 4-kilometer radius, nor do we perceive anything that would, except potentially a communication tower, a wind turbine. Those would be two things that would impact, we feel, the airspace that we're trying to protect. So I can pass this around to you so you can see it.
So on that then, you have the height restrictions now. This is not going to be dreamed up later. We know that it's going to be so many feet so far out, so
Yeah.
many feet so far out.
It is all listed in their zoning bylaw,
Okay.
and it will be put in, we're hoping that they're going to put this in as a restriction, right? And it says exactly how many meters from the runway you can't build within that airspace. So it protects it, it's outlined, they've seen it, and nothing impedes it right now.
So we don't have a copy of that. No council has a copy of that, or we did. Your Worship,
You got
this
that
is-
over a year ago.
Could I just have her finish?
Yeah. I apologize, I could have handed a copy of this out. They've adopted the exact recommendation which we gave them, which was from Philip Van Menen's report. Over a year ago, he provided this diagram, and then Huron County Planning Department took that and applied it on top of their GIS mapping, and now have this accurate measurement of the circle right on top of the lands in Huron County, which is Morris Turnbury and North Huron, which this would impact.
Thank you.
Okay.
This was discussed at length when Philip did the
Right.
investigation and putting things together for this a year ago, so that maybe that it isn't fresh in your mind, but yes, it has been to the council table before when Philip was doing it. Did you have anything extra, Archie? Okay.
So just for clarity, we're asking Morris Turnbury two things. One is this airspace protection, which is not a zone. The second piece is zoning the actual airport lands around the runway, not our whole property, just the runway area, and that is where we're working out eating establishment of what size and such. It's a zone. Okay?
But in doing this, there will be some protection where there is no protection from the communications tower or wind turbines or anything at the present time. So I strongly speak in favor of passing this motion. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried.
I also have the Live Festival Renewal Agreement for us tonight. This will be later in the bylaw section, and I wanted to report out and explain what we've been working on with the Live Festival to renew. So the old agreement, which was, well, there's a really old agreement, but this most recent agreement was signed in 2009 and had a renewal clause, which was to renew for an additional 5 years pending any discussion on terms. So in conversations between North Huron staff and the festival and insurance agents and lawyers, we have come up with some changes that we would like to, both groups would like to see inserted into the current agreement. And in my report, you'll see that that basically is defining the discretionary maintenance spending. We have over 5 years of records of how much we spend on that. So we've given them this $5,000 for these types of items to spend. If they exceed that, then we need to be notified of that. So that means that they need to go buy light bulbs or they need to go buy a can of paint to repair something. They go ahead and do that without asking for each item to be approved. The utilities and shared expenses, it's a very, if you had an opportunity to read the agreement, It's complicated in the way it has been set up over the years, but during the festival season, the festival is responsible for 100% of utilities and expenses at the building. During the off-season, which is before May and after September, we have a 58-42 split on those expenses. The more business we can generate in rentals and gets the township that revenue, but it costs more to operate the building, cleaning it, hydro, natural gas. So the festival is asking that we cap those off-season expenses at $24,000, which based on previous expenses is reasonable, so that everybody's on the same page with trying to get as many rentals and generate as much business as we can at Memorial Hall. We've also just clearly defined the reconciliation dates, which help us both with their year end and our year end in the agreement. And then there's some items both in the legal section, meaning what insurance and indemnities are required of renters, and indemnifying each party. Those sections have been rewritten by our legal and insurance consultants. So those are the general changes that we're recommending. This has gone to the Blythe Festival Board and has been approved, and we've now brought it tonight to council for your consideration. So if there's any questions about the agreement or the renewal clause for an additional 5 years.
I'll make a motion to approve.
McGowan seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. We divide on later. Okay, moving, thanks, Ty. Moving to Director of Finance. Donna?
Thank you. So your year-to-date reports were in your packages, so please email me with any questions. So we're basically covering up to the August month end. Just wanted to remind you that with year-end fast approaching, there's a number of allocations with interdepartment transfers such as wages and utilities that we don't see until later on in the year when those items are considered. Also, just to note that we have a number of seasonal activities which really don't show up till the later part of the year. So we simply can't take all of our activities and divide them by 1/12 and have that show up as a year-to-date, where, as you know, we're heavy on snow plowing and ice rentals and those types of things. So those are coordinated with the seasonal activities. We have a number of capital projects underway, so they are completed, so you don't see the totals for those. And again, with the item from tonight, we have a number of projects that were approved after the budget was adopted. So you won't see those numbers in the budget figures, but you do see the corresponding expenses. So I just wanted to remind you of those things. Also, what my question was is last year we had an in-depth, pretty near a full-day budget review on September the 18th, and I think it went really well. So I was asking, because we're in an election situation, for sure I want to have that in December again, because we'll be knee-deep into the 2015 budget, and it would be a good prelude into the budget to have it in December for any new folks. But I'm just asking if this council would also like to schedule something either later this month or into the first part of October before the election, and have that either half day, couple hours, full day, whatever you like, review, similar somewhat to what we had last year, just to get a handle on where things are. So either of those options is available, and I can certainly arrange that if I had some sort of direction from council what you'd like to see. Is there any comments?
Personally, I'd like to go through it. You know, it's tough for day meetings for me, but I'd like to go through it and maybe you can get in. But there's a few areas I think we need to look at.
So what are you saying?
I'm in favor of a meeting.
A 2 to 3 hour meeting?
Yeah.
When it can be scheduled?
So what about something during, David has a number of initiatives underway that he'll have some further information by, say, the 1st of October, David? First week of October. So how about something, we'll send out some dates after the first week of October and schedule something, give you a couple of options to pick from. Would that be satisfactory?
That would be good.
I think it's
Okay.
important that we do this. I think it's beneficial to both this council and next.
For sure, and then definitely we'll schedule something again in December, as I said, with any of the new ones that will be, it'd be crucial to have them involved in that for a prelude to the new budget. Okay, so we'll send out some dates on that. Okay.
Okay, very good.
Okay, I'll carry on then. My second item is Dawn and Kelly and myself have been working diligently on the 2 new funding applications. They're due this week, September the 19th. We're still waiting for some final information from the engineers, so we may not get that until, well, we won't get it until tomorrow or Wednesday. But what we, after putting our heads together, what we've decided to propose is, as we discussed under the short-term project, the new well in Blythe, actually both projects are in Blythe, and just remind you that the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund is a shorter-term project, and it has a much shorter, as I said, a much shorter turnaround time, and that you can request up to 90% of the funding. So we're suggesting there that the new well in Blythe is going to cost somewhere around $500,000, and we were looking at suggesting request of $80,000 on that project. So the second project is the longer term project, and after much mulling about, we have decided again that our this maybe would be our last kick at the can at Mill Street again. We have applied for this project under many avenues of funding, but it's such a big project, over $2 million, that unless we get some type of funding on it, we just don't see how we're going to ever proceed with that whole thing and get that project done. So it is a much longer term. It is a one-third project, and so those are the 2 projects that we are putting forth in our applications, and we're just floating those out there. The well we talked about, and last meeting we did bring forward Mill Street as one of the potential ones, depending on the what other information we could come up with. So as staff, those are our 2 recommendations, but we don't have those numbers finalized yet until we hear back tomorrow yet from engineers. So I'd like to first hear any comments from council on how you feel about putting in those 2 projects.
I just have a question. Is there a likelihood of having to do an environmental assessment on the Mill Street?
Well,
Mill Street?
to answer that question, Brock, we didn't feel that we would have been into what we're into right now with the first phase of it, so we've got the approval going forward with the second phase, but we could run into problems there as well. We don't foresee anything, but we didn't on the first one either, so.
Well, kind of an odd situation. I've been contacted by a consulting firm to ask about the history of the area, and that bothers me quite a bit, what they're asking for.
Did you have anything to add to it?
Other than, yeah, the environmental assessment that we ran into was to do with the Ontario Realty Corporation, and all we asked for was an easement, a 30-foot easement across there, and so basically we're doing quite a lot of background, so forth, for them to clear their property is what it ends up being. So, but as far as the balance of the project, it's pretty much the replacement type of a project. So, in generally speaking, those don't require an environmental assessment.
Oh, good. That's hopeful.
So far.
Okay. There's 2 motions for the 2 different applications. We'll take the Ontario Community Infrastructure or the new well first. Do I have a motion? Gordon, and not? Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, on the second one, for the Small Communities Fund, the Mill Street storm sewer reconstruction, not, and Campbell. Any discussion?
What is
James?
the time frame on that, on the Mill Street one?
It's a 5-year project.
Okay, so it doesn't have to go into next year's budget kind of thing?
Well,
Some of it will?
yeah, definitely we would start putting money into it right away. What happens with both of these projects is we don't know about them until, well, first off, if you make it through round 1, then we have to send in full-blown applications by December. Then we know by February or March, which we'll likely have our budgets done by then. So it's one of those things that we would still start planning, putting money away, because for us to come up with our 1/3 of the 743,000, it's going to take us a couple of years to, and we're still going to be able to have to borrow some money in there from ourselves to be able to finance that for sure. So.
That would probably be about the third week of February. Some of that information might come out at Good Roads Convention. Okay. All in favor? Carried?
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Donna. Moving to water and wastewater facilities, there's a department report. Anything to add, John?
Actually, I don't have anything to add to it unless there's any questions about the report.
Make a motion to accept the
Motion to receive,
report.
seconded. Campbell, seconded. All in favor? Carried. Okay, under new business, fire department report. David?
Thank you. Firstly, my apologies. I sent Kathy our reports to all of our contracted partners like September 3rd, but I realized today that I didn't actually send her our own council report, so you'll just be getting these now. Month of August report is attached. 2 structure fires in August, but generally speaking, much closer to normal kind of level of activity for our fire department. Just a couple things that I would flag as notable. First one is that you'll notice under the notable section, our fire department has started our comprehensive cancer mitigation efforts. And that's everything from showering our firefighters to using baby wipes after they take off their breathing masks on scene, and washing their gear. And like anything, it was taking some time to get traction, but we certainly are seeing our firefighters starting to do this and do all the stuff we can to ensure that there are no long-term health effects from their activities that they're doing as part of their fire suppression. You'll also note that we've started our Alarm for Life door-to-door smoke alarm campaign. Our goal is to be done in the fire department in North Huron portion of the Morris Ward in 2014. And it looks like by the time our 4 weeks of work are done, we will have completed the Morris section of Morris Turnberry this year, with the goal over the next few years thereafter to complete the Turnberry section. You also notice at the bottom of the notable talks about inventory management. One of the things I hope is sort of predicated on how much activity we have. One of my goals, or one of the things I want to implement within the fire department is almost a business-minded approach to how we manage some of our affairs. And that uses technology and that uses efficiency and some substantial dollar savings, some small ones, but basically before this council adjourns and the next council is selected, I'm hoping I can spend some time with you and actually show you what types of things we're doing to drive the efficiency out of, or drive the efficiency into our fire department in every way we can, just to ensure that when our taxpayers are spending money with us, they're getting as much of it going to frontline services as possible. Last thing I would have a note on is there's been a lot of comments about the motor vehicle collision in Wingham last night on Josephine Street. Most of the media comments will come from the police, as is a procedure for those, but our fire service hasn't seen a collision like that for most of our guys probably ever. And on top of that, certainly don't see collisions like that in municipalities where it's built up. You might see it in the country, but that wasn't a common collision to see in a more urban setting. And I think the one takeaway for some of the public and some of the few comments I've heard is that they observe they've got OPP, so you've got the provincial police, you've got the Wingham police, there are paramedics from Bruce County, paramedics from Huron County, 2 stations of the Fire Department of North Huron there. And when people's lives were at stake, we're all on one team. There's not an us and them, there's not a my side of the road, your side of the road kind of attitude. And I thought it was pretty neat, all things considered, it's pretty neat to see when all these agencies come together, how they all work together, truly giving their all, hoping for the best outcome for the people that we're called to serve. And I think for some of the citizens last night, that was probably one of the few chances they'd actually have to see how that all plays out in an incident like that. And the few people I've spoken with all commented on that, and it is very true. And that's a compliment to all the services we work with, as well as the firefighters that work with North Huron. And we certainly hope that the results of our efforts from last night will be good for the people that we were cutting out of the vehicles.
Bernie?
Just like to say, Dave, that I had a lot of comments and conversations about that today too. And everybody wants to thank you and your team and all teams involved in it. It's just, like you said, we don't see this. We just hear about this. But for people to actually view what you guys do, how you do it, how efficient everything was, you tried your best. Everybody, the guys are really good. I need you to pass that on to them. It's fantastic.
I much appreciate it. I'll be sure to.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Thank you, David. Okay. Moving to new business, first is the McGinn family request to waive the tent permit fee.
So
Bailey seconds. All in favor? Carried. Wingham Air Cadets request to close Veterans Road from Josephine to Farley Lane for a parade in honor of the Battle of Britain on September 20th. Campbell and Knott. And that is for what, approximately 2 hours? Did you say? It's from 10 a.m. probably. It isn't specified, but it's probably only a 2-hour closing. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Point 3, Habitat for Humanity, Huron County, request to waive building permit fee for upgrades to a building on Francis Street.
I'd move approval of that.
Rodden, and do I have a seconder? Campbell. Discussion, if any? Bill?
what is the value of the building we're waiting?
Kathy or Donna, do you have anything?
We would know the value of the permit until we see the drawings for the actual reconstruction of the porch. But we should let you know as soon as we know.
So it's just a porch reconstruction?
Just the front porch reconstruction, Bill. Okay, all in favor then? Carried. Okay. Moving to council information, there's 4 points there, things that you want. And I think point 4 from the Recycling Council of Ontario, Waste Reduction Week, October 20th to 26th. That's something that in the past 8 years that we have made great strides in increasing the amount that's been recycled in this municipality, so that if somebody wanted to move a motion of support for declaring that Waste Reduction Week.
I'll move that.
Do I have a seconder? Campbell, seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Brock?
In line with item 3 on the list, I'd like to follow through on this Appreciation Day for childhood educators. I think this is not a mandated program in our list, but it's managed in such a way that the cost is minimal, but a lot of the costs are recovered. I think our staff do a marvelous thing. I think it's a great service that we're providing to the community. So I would like to recommend that we pass this.
You're seconding, Bernie?
Yep.
Okay, and yes, we have some very dedicated child care and early childhood educators, and it's nice to recognize that. All in favor of the motion? Carried. Is there anything else?
Motion to read and file.
Receive, read, and file. Seconder, McGowan seconds. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Moving to committee reports. Would there be any questions for Bill on Blythe BIA? Doesn't seem to be, Bill. You got off easy.
Oh, yeah. The only thing I'd note in there is that the meeting that's noted in there for us on our HEDP contract is actually going to be Thursday now, and there are 2 candidates. So hopefully by the time we see next
Okay.
council, that'll be resolved.
Okay, thank you. Moving to Wingham BIA. Any questions for Bernie or anything to add? Okay. Wingham and Area Health Professionals Recruitment Committee. Any questions for me on that? Okay. It isn't in that meeting, but in the last meeting that we had, we are on the list for 2 doctors that are a couple that will be finishing the residencies next July, and they're both family medicine graduates, and the husband is relatively local, being a Bruce County native, and that things mentioned with Wingham Hospital moving forward is something that has made them really put Wingham Hospital and the Wingham area as part of their selection criteria. Okay, moving to bylaws. Bylaw number 64, 2014. Being a bylaw to authorize the reading clerk to sign on behalf of council a municipal fire protection agreement with the Corporation of the Township of Ashfield, Colburn, Walnut from October, November, and December of 2014. Do I have a mover? McGowan? And Campbell? All, any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay. Bylaw number 65, 2014, being a bylaw to authorize the Region Clerk to sign, on behalf of council, a municipal fire protection agreement with the Corporation of the Township of Ashfield, Colburn, Wawanach for 5 years, being 2015 to the end of 2019.
I move first, second, and third reading.
Vaughn and Bailey. All in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 66, 2014, being a bylaw to authorize the Region Clerk to sign, on behalf of council, an agreement with the municipal capital facilities regarding property owned by the Wingham District Hospital. McGowan and Bailey. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Okay. Bylaw number 67, 2014, being a bylaw to authorize an exemption, or authorize to exempt certain municipal capital facilities from taxation. That ties in with the last one. Campbell and Knott. All in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 68, 2014, being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a joint management agreement for the Blythe Memorial Community Hall between the Township of North Huron and the Blythe Center for the Arts. Knott and Vodden. All in favor? Carried. And that,
We're skipping 6.
that will be carried to the next meeting. Moving to council reports and inquiries. Brock?
I had a question put to me very recently, and I don't have a lot of background in it, but the question is, why are the Blythe BIA and the Wingham BIA not working closer together? I don't know the background of the issue, or whether there in fact is an issue, but it was an individual felt that it was important. I wonder if it's something that the BIAs would like to discuss at some point, why or why not work together.
I can answer that. There is communication between the two BIAs, but the BIA's fundamental reason for being around is to clean up and take care of their downtowns. So one is in Blythe and one is in Wingham, and so that is really why they're here, to clean up and make their downtown, so they're two different downtowns.
I pointed this out to the individual who mentioned that it's a territorial, it's a geographic kind of designation, and each has its own separate response. Even if we were in one city, that you often have more BIAs, and they don't necessarily. But the question was, could they not get some benefit by working together? That's all.
Bill?
The discussion came up at the last meeting, and also actually Peter Cuso and myself were having just a minor chat the other day, and we talked about that. BIAs in and of themselves correctly are very geocentric, and they are for the benefit of that particular business community, and by their nature they are therefore competitive. So the Blythe BIA and the Wingham BIA, and essentially every BIA in Huron County competes with each other for business. That's what we're there for. But there are probably opportunities in the future because of the nature of North Huron. The two communities are very distinct and very separate and have different, not facilities, but a very different kind of texture to their businesses. And there may be opportunities for the two to work together. So the topic is out there, and we'll probably come for discussion in the future, very near future, as we go forward. And I don't see any problem with cooperating with certain things. It's just nature of the beast, it's hard, right?
Connie may want to add to that.
No, I don't. I mean, no, I don't. There has been projects in the past that that both BIAs have partnered to bring us. Last year we had all of the employment and training agencies that had come into North Huron and had done a promotion of their, or talk about their services, and there was a partnership between the two BIAs. So when things make sense, they certainly do work together, and different things. But I think very much you are right, when downtown is your focus, and they're very new BIAs as well. I think that we'll see that once that they move on and they get, you know, some things in-house in place, then we're going to probably see a lot more crossover in the partnerships.
Just one more comment. One thing they have in common is that they both deal with North Huron Council. And perhaps there could be some common issues come up where they would like to advise us or request a different kind of arrangement with them. That's the sort of thing that I think could be helpful. But it's up to them.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, anything else from council? You didn't have anything you wanted to say, did you, Kathy? Okay. Moving to public gallery questions or comments on things we've covered so far in the meeting tonight. Denny?
Just further to the accident collision, my apologies, that Chief Sparling brought up. And this is to, I think it's Archie, you're on the police services board. I've been trying to get in touch with the police department in Wingham because they're the ones who are supposed to handle it as it happened here all day. Called them every hour on the hour, leaving messages, have not heard back from them. Aside from walking down Main Street with a shotgun, how do I get the attention of them?
So through you, Your Worship, the problem with the Wingham service obviously is a very small service. This was a major collision, and they've had a number of officers that were tied up into the night, as well as in London and dealing with the Crown Prosecutor, I believe. You really should talk to the police chief. I know he's been a little indisposed. The Police Services Board is tomorrow night. I understand he's coming. He may have more to say at that point.
Okay, I was told he's on vacation.
He is coming to the Police Services Board.
Okay, all right.
Go with me, I'm not running the meeting.
More from me on the same topic. Our deadlines are before tomorrow night.
In fairness, I can't make any comment on the collision. You know, that's really up to the police chief.
So, I guess they're too busy to answer questions as yet. And maybe that there's some things that aren't properly identified yet. Bill?
I was just saying, I don't know if Archie had any insight on that. Were they involved in helping the OPP in the incident?
Not to my
at
knowledge.
all?
Not to my knowledge.
I'm just curious because I did pass a cruiser going the other way just outside of Blythe today.
I can't speak to that situation specifically. I don't know. It's not uncommon for the Wingham Police to assist the OPP in various situations, but I have no knowledge of whether they were assisting in that.
So do we not have a specific individual when the chief is not present on vacation that is assigned the duty of becoming the point of contact for the
It would normally fall to Sergeant Fox, and my understanding is he has been detained the majority of the day with this subject.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. We'll move forward to the in-camera session. Do I have a motion to go in camera? Bodden, and McGowan. All in favor? Carried. Okay, well.